From the very beginning, I was just a disappointment. The midwife's cry echoed in the room, "It's a girl," and the silence that followed marked my life forever. My dad turned his back and left the room while my mom closed her eyes, hiding tears that were not of joy. They wanted a boy, an heir. They got Emily. Me. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. Years went by and I learned to live in the shadows of the house. My drawings never went on the fridge, and my excellent grades were met with distracted nods. "Good job, Emily," they said without even looking me in the eyes. Then my sister Jessica was born. Jessica was perfect in their eyes. Not because she was the daughter they had wished for, but because she learned early on how to manipulate them. While I studied at the municipal library after school, Jessica would cry until she got the new toy on the store shelves. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" That question haunted me throughout my childhood. But the truth is, I never wanted to be like her. I watched how Jessica could bend anyone with her teary eyes and carefully planned smiles. I chose a different path. In high school, I started building my own identity. While my parents bought name-brand clothes for Jessica, I worked part-time at the local bookstore and saved every penny. My independence grew, as did the gap between us. "Emily has always been so cold," I heard my mom say to an aunt during a family gathering. "Jessica has such a big heart." I swallowed that injustice just like I had for years. It wasn't about being cold, it was self-preservation. When college time came, my parents assumed I would study something suitable for girls like my sister who chose arts. Their faces froze when I announced my choice, economics. "This is a course for men," my dad said, without hiding his disdain. "Then maybe I'll finally become the son you've always wanted," I replied, feeling the burn of those words in my throat. For the first time in my life, I saw something different in his eyes. It wasn't approval, but a reluctant respect that gave me the strength to move forward. At college I found freedom. Far from judgmental looks, I began to blossom. My professors valued my sharp analytical mind, and my peers respected me. Then I met Michael. Michael was studying business administration, and we met in the library during finals week. He accidentally knocked over my pile of books and spent the entire night helping me with economic equations as an apology. Michael was different from the other guys, he saw me. He really saw me. Our romance blossomed between classes and internships. With him, I felt complete for the first time. When we graduated, Michael proposed to me under the trees on campus where we had met. I said yes without hesitation. My parents' reaction to the announcement of our engagement caught me by surprise. For the first time I saw genuine enthusiasm on their faces. My dad hugged Michael tightly. "We finally got a son," he exclaimed, as if I weren't there. Jessica seemed uncomfortable with the attention directed at me, even if only indirectly. During the engagement dinner, she announced she was dating a musician and monopolized the conversation for the rest of the night. The wedding was modest, just the way we wanted it. My parents insisted on paying for a bigger event than we planned, not for me, but for the chance to show off Michael to their friends. Our married life began calm. We got good jobs and bought a small house in the suburbs. At Sunday dinners at my parents' place, I noticed how my dad chatted excitedly with Michael about sports and politics, barely asking about my promotion at work. 2 years later, during one of those dinners, my mom asked the question that would change everything. "When are you going to give us grandchildren?" At first we ignored the pressure. Michael and I were enjoying life, building our careers, and traveling occasionally. But after the 3rd year we decided we were ready. We tried for months without success. Every period was a painful reminder of failure, and the pressure built up with every family visit. "Your sister would probably be pregnant by now," my mom commented casually as we washed the dishes after lunch. Jessica wasn't married, but my mom spoke as if that didn't matter. After a year of trying with no results, we visited a doctor. Endless tests, invasive procedures, hope followed by disappointment. Finally, the diagnosis came like a sentence: I was infertile. The genetic condition meant my chances of conceiving naturally were almost nil. Telling Michael was one of the hardest things I ever did. His hands held mine as tears streamed down my face. He seemed sincere when he said that it didn't change anything, that he loved me regardless of whether we had biological children. We talked about adoption, about building our family in other ways. For a few weeks I really believed we would get through it together. Then came the family gatherings. One evening my mom called me into the kitchen during dinner to ask about the test results. I hesitated but eventually told her. Her face showed no compassion, only confirmation of what she'd always known, that I was defective. "You were always a disappointment," she murmured. "You couldn't even do the one thing a woman is supposed to do naturally." I went back to the dining room with trembling hands only to see my mom pulling Michael off to speak quietly. When he came back to my side, he couldn't look me in the eyes. In the following weeks I noticed small changes. Michael started coming home late from work. He hid messages on his phone when I entered the room. His calls ended abruptly whenever I showed up. I convinced myself it was just stress, the grief for the future we had imagined. Jessica began appearing at our house far more often than usual. She brought home-cooked meals for Michael, offered to help with chores while I worked late. "I'm just helping my sister," she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. One Saturday afternoon I got home early from a last-minute cancelled work meeting. I found Michael, Jessica, and my parents sitting in our living room. It felt like a family tribunal, and I was the only one who did not know I was being judged. "Emily," my dad started, "we need to talk about the future." Michael couldn't look at me. Jessica kept her eyes down, though I could see a slight smile. "Michael needs children," my mom said as if talking about the weather. "You can't give that to him. It's selfish to keep him tied to you." I looked at my husband, waiting for him to defend our marriage, our love. "I'm sorry, Emily," he finally said, his voice almost a whisper. "I always wanted to be a dad. We always talked about having a family. We can adopt," I argued, feeling my world crumble. "There are other ways." "That's not the same," my dad replied, as if he had every right to comment on my marriage. "A man needs children of his own blood." That was when Jessica put her hand on Michael's arm in a very intimate way. "Emily, you know I have Olivia from my previous relationship. Michael is already in love with her. And we can have more kids together." It took a moment for my brain to catch up. My sister and my husband. My parents approving, facilitating, maybe even orchestrating that betrayal. "How long?" was all I managed to ask. 3 months, Michael admitted. "We didn't plan it. It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated, disbelief giving way to anger. My infertility was just a convenient excuse, wasn't it? An excuse so you wouldn't be seen as the villain. "Sweetheart, be reasonable," my mom interjected. "Jessica can give Michael what you never will. Your sister's, the child she has will be like yours. It will stay in the family." That was the last straw. I looked at those people, my so-called family, and did not recognize any of them. Not even Michael, the man who had promised to stand by me through thick and thin. "Get out of my house," I said with a calm I didn't know I had. "Everyone." When they protested, I simply went upstairs and started packing his things. I threw clothes, shoes, and personal objects into boxes. When I finished, I found them still in the living room, as if they expected me to come to my senses. "Take your things and leave," I told Michael. "The divorce papers will be arriving soon." The divorce was quick and painful. Michael did not fight it, probably driven by guilt. I sold the house we had bought together and moved to another state. I needed physical distance from that family who had betrayed me in every possible way. 6 months after the divorce, I received an invitation to Jessica and Michael's wedding. A cream envelope with golden lettering, like a slap delivered by mail. My mom called the next day. "We hope you'll come," she said as if inviting me to a Sunday barbecue. "After all, we are family." "No, we're not," I replied before hanging up. I found out through social media that Jessica got pregnant right after the wedding. They had a girl named Emma. My parents posted proud photos of the perfect grandchildren Olivia, who Michael had adopted, and little Emma. I threw myself into work. I was promoted twice in 1 year. I bought an apartment, adopted a dog, and built a new life far away from the shadows of my past. But sometimes, late at night, The pain of betrayal would hit me like a wave and remind me how the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had discarded me like a broken object. 2 years after the divorce, I met William. It was at a business conference in Chicago. We sat next to each other during a boring lecture and started passing ironic notes like teenagers. At the coffee break, we talked like old friends. William was different from any man I had ever met. He was caring without being overbearing, confident without being arrogant. He ran a technology research center and had a sense of humor that made me laugh even on my worst days. Our relationship grew naturally. There were no games or unspoken expectations. When I finally told him about my past, the rejection from my parents, the betrayal by Michael and Jessica, he held my hands and said something I will never forget. They lost someone extraordinary. The problem was never you, Emily. 6 months after we started dating, I decided to tell him about my infertility. I steeled myself for the worst, for the disappointment I expected to see in his eyes. I can't have kids, I said all at once during a dinner at home. I have a genetic condition. The doctors said my chances are almost non-existent. William put down his fork and looked at me intently. Emily, I fell in love with you, not with your ability to have children. If we end up having kids one day, great. If not, we'll still be a family, just you, me, and maybe a few more dogs. For the first time, I felt truly loved for who I was, not for what I could offer or produce. Our wedding was intimate, just close friends and colleagues. I did not invite my biological family. William had wonderful parents who welcomed me as their own daughter from the very first meeting. His sister even became my best friend. I learned what a real family should be, a place of mutual support, not of competition or conditions. 1 year after the wedding, I started feeling morning nausea. I ignored the symptoms, chalking them up to a virus or just stress. When I finally saw a doctor, I was prepared for any diagnosis except this one. You're pregnant, Emily. About 8 weeks. I looked at him in absolute shock. That's impossible. I have a genetic condition. I was diagnosed as infertile years ago. The doctor smiled. Medicine doesn't have all the answers. Sometimes, even with severe conditions, miracles happen. Your case is rare but not unheard of. I left the office in a state of shock. I bought 5 different pregnancy tests and every single one came back positive. When William got home that night, I was still sitting on the couch, surrounded by tests and in tears. Emily, what happened? He said, rushing over with worry. I looked up, unable to speak. I simply handed him one of the tests. William examined it, his face confused for a moment until understanding dawned. We're going to. I nodded, finally finding my voice. I'm pregnant. The doctors were wrong. Either a miracle happened or I just can't explain it. William hugged me as if I were made of glass. No need to explain. It just is. The pregnancy was monitored closely given my history. Every ultrasound and every heartbeat of the baby felt like a small victory. When we found out we were expecting a boy, William cried openly with joy. Our son, Thomas William, was born on a spring morning after 16 hours of labor. When they placed him in my arms, all the pain of the past seemed to melt away. He had William's eyes and, as everyone said, my smile. Thomas turned 3 when we decided to visit the town where I grew up for one of William's company events. I hesitated at first, this place held painful memories for me. But with William and Thomas by my side, I felt strong enough to face the ghosts of my past. We were walking through the local mall when I saw Jessica. She looked thinner, with deep dark circles under her eyes, and she was pushing a stroller with Emma, who was now almost 5 years old. My first instinct was to turn and walk away, but she spotted us before we could leave. Emily. Her voice sounded uncertain, as if she wasn't sure I really belonged there. William squeezed my hand, silently letting me know the choice was mine. Thomas hid behind my legs, shy in front of the stranger. Hi, Jessica, I replied in a polite but distant tone. She glanced first at William and then fixed her eyes on Thomas, her expression widening in obvious shock. You have a son? Yes, this is Thomas. And this is my husband, William. Jessica looked completely off kilter, as if my happiness was something she could not possibly understand. But you couldn't. The doctors were wrong, I interrupted sharply. Emma watched Thomas with childlike curiosity. As I looked at her, I noticed features that didn't resemble either Jessica or Michael at all. Lighter hair and differently shaped eyes. "How is everyone?" I asked just out of courtesy. Jessica hesitated. "They're fine. Mom and Dad adore the kids. Michael got promoted last year." I nodded politely. "That's good." An uncomfortable silence followed until William gently suggested we go for lunch. We said our goodbyes quickly, loosely promising to stay in touch, one of those little social lies everyone understands. As we walked away, Thomas asked, "Who's that sad lady?" His innocent insight always surprised me. "Someone I met a long time ago," I replied simply. That night I couldn't sleep. The meeting had stirred up feelings I thought were long buried. It wasn't anger or resentment, I didn't really feel those upon seeing Jessica. It was something else, a feeling that something was not right. The next morning, while William took Thomas to see a local park, I decided to take a walk by myself through my old neighborhood. I wasn't planning on running into anyone, I just wanted to make peace with that chapter of my life. By an incredible coincidence, I saw Jessica again. She was leaving a cafe, not with Michael, but with another man. They were holding hands and sharing kisses that showed they were in a relationship. I stood frozen, trying to process what I saw. When they said goodbye on the sidewalk, Jessica turned and noticed me. Her face lost all color. "Emily, I can explain. You're cheating on Michael," I said, not as a question. Jessica pulled me into a quieter corner of the street, glancing nervously around. "Things haven't been good between us for years," she confessed softly. "Michael changed after Emma was born. He's always working, always distant. So you decided to cheat instead of trying to fix things?" Jessica laughed bitterly. "Isn't it ironic? The man for whom you ruined your life now isn't enough for me." "You didn't ruin my life," I corrected. "Looking back, you all set me free. If it hadn't been for that betrayal, I'd never have met William, I'd never have Thomas." Jessica lowered her eyes. "Mom and Dad never stopped talking about how you had a child even though you're defective. It's killing Michael, you know? He thinks the problem must be with him since Emma was conceived right after we got married, but is the problem Michael's?" I asked, connecting the dots. Jessica looked visibly uncomfortable. "I didn't say that." "No, but you implied it." A suspicion crept up inside me. "Jessica, who is Emma's father?" She paled even more. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that you were already involved with someone else when you started your affair with Michael. Maybe even the same man I just saw." Tears filled her eyes. "Please don't tell anyone. If Michael finds out that you got pregnant by another man and let him believe he was the father, that our parents manipulated and wrecked my marriage so you could stay with Michael, all while you were already involved with someone else. Look at all the injustice," I said. "It was a mistake," Jessica cried. I was confused and scared. When I discovered I was pregnant, I panicked. Alex had just broken up with me and Michael seemed so stable, so sure. "So you used him?" "At first, yes," she admitted. "But then I really tried to make it work. I swear I did." I looked at my sister, a woman I no longer recognized, and I felt a mix of pity and disgust. "I'm leaving tomorrow, Jessica. What you do with your life is no longer my problem. But you need to tell Michael the truth. He deserves to know." "And if I don't tell him?" she asked. "Then I will," I replied simply. "He may not have been the best husband for me, but no one deserves to live such a huge lie." I left Jessica standing on the curb, trembling and crying. As I walked back to the hotel, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The circle was closing. That night, I told William everything. He listened without interrupting, holding my hands as I recounted every detail of our encounter. "What are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. I gave her until tomorrow to tell Michael. "If she doesn't, I'll do it myself before we leave." William nodded. "I'll be by your side no matter what you decide." The next day, I didn't hear from Jessica. I made the tough decision to call Michael. We agreed to meet at a cafe near the hotel. Michael looked older, with worry lines etched on his face. When he saw me, his expression was a mix of surprise, shame, and something like regret. "You look great, Emily," he said after a pause. "Thank you. You look tired," I replied. He shrugged. "Probably working too much." I decided not to prolong the conversation. "Michael, I have to tell you something I found out yesterday. It's not easy, but you deserve to know the truth." When I finished telling him about Jessica, the affair, and my suspicions about Emma, Michael was silent for so long I thought maybe he hadn't even heard me. "I always knew," he finally said quietly. "Deep down, I always knew something was off. Emma doesn't look like me or my family at all. But I told myself it was just random genetics. What an idiot I was." "You're not an idiot, Michael. You just believed what you wanted to believe." "How did you do that with me?" he asked, catching me off guard. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I wasn't a good husband to you, Emily. Even before Jessica. I was so obsessed with having kids that I forgot how to simply love you. That does not justify what they did." "No, it doesn't." Michael looked out the window, lost in thought. "I'm going to do a paternity test. I need to know for sure. What will you do if Emma isn't your daughter?" "I don't know. I love that little girl more than anything. She is my daughter in every way that matters." He hesitated a moment. "But I can't carry on with Jessica after this. It's over." I felt a strange pity for Michael at that moment. He, too, had been hurt. "I'm sorry things have come to this." "Don't be," Michael finally said as he looked into my eyes. "I heard you have a child now. And a new husband." "Yes. Thomas is 3 and William is. He's amazing." A small smile appeared on his face. "I'm genuinely happy for you, Emily." We said goodbye with a strange, cordial handshake. As I watched him walk out of the cafe, I realized I no longer felt any connection with him. The love we once shared seemed to belong to other people, in another life. 3 months later, I received an email from Michael. He had done the paternity test. Emma wasn't his biological daughter. The divorce was in progress. Jessica had confessed everything, including that our parents had known from the start that Emma might not be Michael's daughter. They were determined to hide the truth to keep up appearances. Michael ended the email by asking if he could see Thomas someday. Not as part of the family, just as a friend. I replied that maybe, in the future, once all the wounds had completely healed. During dinner that night, I watched William playing with Thomas, his laughter filling our home with joy. I thought about how unpredictable life can be. How rejection can open the door to true acceptance. How painful losses can lead to unexpected gains. Weeks later, my parents called trying to reconnect now that the castle of lies had crumbled. They were politely informed that they no longer had a place in my life. Family isn't just about blood, it's about love, respect, and loyalty. It's about who stands by your side not only in happy times, but also through the storms. On Thomas's 5th birthday, I looked around the table. There was William, my in-laws who had treated me like their daughter, and friends who had become the brothers and sisters I chose. This was my true family, built through conscious choices, not biological obligations. Jessica tried to reconcile with me a few times. Part of me still cared for the sister I once knew before our parents' expectations and manipulations put us on opposite paths. Maybe someday we can have some kind of relationship. But for now, I'm keeping my distance. Michael eventually rebuilt his life. Through occasional updates, I learned that he remained a part of Emma's life even though she wasn't his biological daughter. I respected that about him. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the worst betrayals. My journey taught me that true family is the one we build with love, not the one we are given by birth. Thomas runs around the backyard as I write these words, chasing our dog with uncontrollable laughter. William works at the grill, occasionally glancing at us with that smile that still makes my heart race. I'm pregnant again, a girl this time, another wonderful surprise that the doctors can't explain. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. I am no longer defined by my parents' rejection or by the betrayal I suffered. I am defined by the love I give and receive, by the choices I make each day, and by the family I built with my own hands. And that, I finally realized, is the sweetest victory of all.